Doctor. Joining me today is a man with a 25-4 record, 16 KOs. He's a one-time world champion challenger. He goes by the Cannon. That's Brandon Adams. Brandon, appreciate taking time to come on today, man.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I gotta start with one thing with you, Brandon. The Cannon. You gotta give us the backstory behind that. How did that come to be? Why is that the name that you decided to go by?
So I got my name from Fight Night Champions round 3. It was
Okay.
a big Tigger. Used to every time he pronounced the names, I was going for a name that was catchy that rhymed with my actual name, Brandon Adams.
Mm-hmm.
And the Cannon was the closest one that just rhymed, Brandon Cannon Adams. So soon I turned professional. That's exactly what I went with.
All right, so I want to go through your story, though, because, Brandon, you've had quite the journey to get to the point where we're at today, between your boxing career, but also your childhood and how you got into boxing. So if we go all the way back, though, I want to know, just growing up out there, you grew up between Compton and Watson, Los Angeles, California. When you were growing up out there, what about growing up out there made you into the person that you are today?
Um, it was just real competitive. Everything that you do within that community is real competitive, whether it's good or bad. So uh, all we had was we had boxing. You know, we used to box in the streets. I never went to the boxing gym. We used to just box every summer. That and football. That's what I always got involved with. I was always playing either football or I was always boxing in the summertime. So once I became an adult, it was easy for me to make the transition going to straight boxing because I was trying to play football, but due to my neighborhood and how infested my family was into the neighborhood, it wasn't a good idea for me to try to get involved with football.
Okay. And when you talk about the boxing component there, was that something that you ever had a dream of when you were younger as being, okay, I want to be a professional boxer one day? Or did that more so develop as you got older then?
As I was getting
Okay.
older. I mean, the neighborhood, there was a lot of fighting going on. Always, you had to be tough. You couldn't be no punk. So me boxing and me always playing the video games, boxing, watching a lot of martial arts, anime, everything, that just kind of slowly put pieces to a puzzle, and that's how I was able to figure out what exactly I wanted to do. So I didn't grow up as a child and just have dreams. I mean, of boxing, I was more interested in football than anything. I was going to be the next best running back in the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
And as I started getting older, I started being drawn into boxing a lot more.
Okay. Do you remember what kind of flipped the switch for yourself and when that time was when you started saying, you know what, I think that boxing is what I was called to do. This is what I feel like is best for me. When did that switch happen for yourself?
That actually happened like when I was in 12th grade. I was in the 12th grade, and I knew I was going to have to make a change within myself. I knew I was going to have to change my outlook on life and how I was viewing everything. I knew what I was doing just wasn't going to cut it. So um, that was it. It was my 12th grade year of high school, and everybody was talking about what they wanted to do. And, in life, I just kind of kept it to myself because nobody in my family ever boxed before. This was new. Nobody in my neighborhood. I mean, we had people who were backyard boxing, but nobody's ever actually went to a boxing gym. So
Mm.
once I made my mind up, that's exactly what I focused on doing, and I went right after it.
I know you're trying to talk about the backyard boxing. That was kind of the beginning portion before you got into professional organized boxing. When you were going through that, I know the story also was about your neighbor. You had Big Al who came out and he kind of introduced you to a real boxing gym. Can you take us through that story a little bit? Just what was his impact on you and how did that all happen to kind of bring you into the professional, more organized boxing lifestyle?
Yeah. So Big Al was one of the neighbors who Big Al was actually like he did a lot of things growing up in his day, but one of them is he said he was from Gleason's Boxing Gym in New York.
Hmm.
And he used to train. But I also knew Big Al was actually he was an actor. He was actually in Rocky 4.
Okay.
Was it Rocky 4? No, it was Rocky 5. Excuse me, the
Okay.
one with Tommy Morrison.
Gotcha.
So Big Al was done a lot of things. He dipped his hand in a lot of things, but one of his favorite things that he was interested in was boxing. And he stayed like down the street from me. Uh, he was like, my older brothers, they knew of him, and he's an older gentleman, so
Hmm.
he used to always drive through our neighborhood and just kind of check on all the youth. Uh, and as he was checking in, just like, yo, man, what's going on? How y'all doing? Like, it was always small talk. He'd go pass by.
Sure.
And I used to always see him growing up. I used to always think he was kind of weird because he's just an older dude who don't have any kids, but he always going by, giving us salutes and saying, hey.
Hmm.
And my older brothers, they was telling me about Big Al. And as they were telling me about him, they were telling me that they were telling him about me and what I said I wanted to do. So they were trying to like get me involved with him so he can tell me how hard boxing is and basically run me off to
Mm.
get me to go to the gym to kind of scare me. Um, and he took me to Broadway Boxing Gym. Broadway Boxing Gym is where I got started in LA. He took me there and he kept asking me, man, you sure you want to do this? And it's funny, man, because he's got a little southern accent, big out, six
Okay.
six, big light skin, handsome dude. He just like, man, you sure you want to do this? And I was like, yeah. I'm a kid. At the time I was 18, turning 19. I was like, yeah. He said, man, you got to work real hard. So he had that conversation with me to let me know how hard it is and how other kids start when they are, way younger,
Hmm.
4, 6, 8, 10. And he told me, it was going to be a hurdle. The fact that I didn't start boxing when I was younger and how I was going to have to pick it up, how I didn't, since I didn't grow up studying or watching boxing and what to look out for. I just told him I work hard. Regard whatever he tells me I will have to do, I would do it to get it done. I was, a child who believed in make believe. And when I say that, I mean like I watched a movie and I saw a lot of these martial art movies of how the student didn't know or understand anything he was doing in the beginning. And then eventually, as time progressed, all of a sudden that student became the master. And I believe that. I 100% believe that about
Hmm.
myself. I said it doesn't matter how much information that I knew or how uncoordinated I possibly was when I first started. I was going to bust my chops. I was going to work real hard to get where I needed to go to become what I desired. And once I said I wanted to do it, I desired to become a world champion. So much of where then I started seeing those in my dreams. I started to see myself raise
Hmm.
my hands in front of a big audience and me being announced the winners and to win championships and so forth. And I just start to manifest that. That's what I start to see and visualize myself as becoming and doing and hearing a lot of people that I knew, like when I would look in the audience and look in the crowd, see a lot of people that which I knew of, and they was cheering for me. I could see that very clearly. So that's where I was like, all right, I really want this. I'm gonna go after it.
Mm.
And ever since, it all been history.
If I were to somehow go and catch you before you're about ready to go walk into that boxing gym for the first time, and I were to ask you, hey, Brandon, where do you see yourself in, 5, 10, 15 years down the road? Do you think the career you've had would have shocked you? Do you think it's exactly what you expected? Have you underachieved in your own opinion? Like, where were you in a mental state in terms of where you saw yourself in boxing at that point in time?
At that time, I didn't know anything about the sport.
Okay.
I didn't understand the business side of it. All I thought was man against man and best man wins. I thought it was just that. I thought that's the way it was. Um, so expectations when it comes to something like that, uh, I just thought it was going to be man against man,
Okay.
and I was very naive. I didn't know. So my career, as far as that goes, that is a total different light than what I thought.
Gotcha.
And now when I look at where I'm at now, and then as far as expectations and everything, I knew it was a whole lot that I was going to have to overcome. I only had 5 amateur fights,
Hmm.
and with those 5 amateur fights, I knew that I was going to have to be challenged. I was going to have to, it's going to be times where I didn't understand what I needed to win. At times, I didn't expect to be undefeated, but I always studied to watch Floyd, so I did want that. I did not
Gotcha.
want to ever taste defeat. I never wanted to lose. Nobody wants to lose,
Yep.
and so I was willing to put in all the work to make sure that never happened. When I fought Willie Monroe, he was the first actual left-hand fighter I ever fought in my whole career. He best me that night, and he gave me a valuable lesson. He gave me a lesson in which I could have learned had I started a little younger. In the amateur system, I would have understood how to throw punches, to put punches together. I didn't
Mhm.
understand how to do that, how to kind of manipulate space while we're fighting. So that was a valuable lesson in which I fought Willie Monroe. Because the next time I fought against a southpaw fighter was Alex Perez, and you saw it was a huge difference. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, Alex Perez didn't move like Willie Monroe, but you saw how I adapted and I learned from that fight.
Mhm.
The next time I lose to John Thompson, I lost before I actually entered the fight. I struggled so bad to make weight for that fight because there was a stipulation where I was told that I was, for a moment, I was shortly suspended for
Mhm.
doping.
Yeah.
They told me that while I was fighting within the tournament, which athletic commission was what, Connecticut,
Gotcha.
Connecticut, Connecticut Athletic Commission actually said that my testosterone and my it was something else they were saying were entirely too high.
Okay. Yeah.
Then what they did is they ran tests and they saw that every time, like my testosterone was high. It was naturally high, and it was around the same time. Like, well, the graph showed that that's naturally what I was producing. So once I was told that I was suspended, I was depressed. They were
Mhm.
telling me, it could take from a year to up towards, until they finished investigating it and lift the suspension. I was afraid of that. But I didn't train anymore for that little moment when I was supposed to prepare to fight John Thompson. And then I get a call from my promoter. He goes, "No, man, your fight is still on." Um, he said, "Where you at?" And I told him, I said, "Man, I wasn't training. You guys didn't, like y'all told me I was suspended. And
Yeah.
if it's on me, then I'm going to train and get ready for a fight. But if you guys as promoters, that old cliche that the promoters work for you and the managers work for you, we know that it is so true.
Yeah.
We work when they tell us that we can work, and then nobody ever gave me the green light and permitted for me to fight. So I didn't train for a fight. It was more so of me knowing that that was a date that I had to get ready to fight for, but nothing was going to come of it. That I was supposed to fight that Friday. I got a call that Monday to go see Dr. Gluckman on Tuesday. So then I had only Tuesday and Wednesday to hurry up and make weight for Thursday so then I can fight Friday. And I tried my best to make weight. I still didn't make weight. I came in a few ounces over. I killed myself during the weigh in. Um, I get stopped. I get stopped when I fought John Thompson. And I kept saying, like, man, that's a shadow of who I am. And I kept trying to, you know, like I just wanted an opportunity to show like that wasn't me that night. That was a super dehydrated
Mhm.
fighter who didn't know any better, who again only had 5 amateur fights. To turn around from being an amateur to a professional, jumping into it, not understanding what's going on, just doing what my coaches say or what the promoter says. Um, I learned a valuable lesson:
Mm.
train and be prepared at all times. And they say, a fighter's got to be ready at all times. You never know. I can get a phone call that I'll be fighting 2 to 3 weeks from now. I have to be ready. So that's when, no matter whatever the situation is, even though, that was under me being suspended, that shook life into me and told me, hey, you got to always be ready. You can't
Mm.
never be slipping because you never know when the opportunity comes for somebody to catch you and get you while you slipping or while you down. So the first time I lose through, like I said, Willie Monroe off of,
Mhm.
no experience. The next time I lose, it was because of the whole stipulation of me doping.
Yeah.
And then the next time a taste defeat is when I was up against Jermall Charlo
Mhm.
when he was in his prime, when he was
Yeah.
doing extremely well. When me and Jermall Charlo was fighting, there was a whole lot of things that was actually happening all at once. My wife was giving birth to my child, and he was we were she was having um, complications with the pregnancy.
Mhm.
So he was born. He was supposed to have been born August 20. He was supposed to have been born between August 21st and upwards,
Okay.
and he was born June 9th.
Mhm. Wow.
So, um, and she was having complications with him. So then, um, I'm my focus is kind of not on the fight. And to top it off, I got injured. My left hand. I was sparring with one of my sparring partners, and I hurt my hand.
Mm.
Um, Kind of slightly dislocated my knuckle. It's the funniest thing ever because working on getting it back, you could see like I have a huge man.
Yeah.
It's bigger than normal knuckles now
Yeah.
because of it. Um, I guess that's the plus side on it. So it's just like I guess I got like fighter hands. You see how big my knuckles are now.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of things that was going on all at once for this fight, and I had it up. They told me that Freddie was my corner for this fight. Freddie and Dub Huntley. Dub is normally my always go to guy. Freddie goes, "Hey man, you're injured. You sure you want to go fight?" And at this moment in my whole career, I've never made money really.
Mm.
Uh, Not the kind of money that can change my life. I said to myself, "No, all I got to do is go out here and perform. And if this guy gives me an opportunity, I'm going to take it. I'm going to knock him out."
Mhm.
So going into that fight, my game plan literally was because I knew my hand was hurt before I went to the fight. Is if I could hit him with a right hand because my left hand was, obsolete. My left hand wouldn't really work that night. I couldn't even close it. I just said if I could hit him with a right hand, I know I could hurt him. I know I could hurt any man if I lay hands on him.
Mhm.
And that was the mindset. That was the game plan to go up in there, hit him, and hurt him, and jump on him and take him out. And of course, you saw the fight became extremely competitive because it wasn't that easy. He is one of the top fighters, and at that time, he was one of the top fighters for a reason.
Mhm.
He wasn't going down. He wasn't trying to give me what I was looking for. And of course, I didn't give him what he was looking for. He was expecting to him, his team, the world was like, man, Brandon was just too little. He don't, this is just
Yeah.
another guy who he gonna run through. And
Mhm.
I knew that wasn't the case because I knew at that moment how good I was. I just knew that I was handicapped because of my hand. So. Um, that time right there was one of the moments where I was like, gosh, man, I just wish my hands was just good because then the fight would have been totally different. He learned that from when he and I was sparring. He asked me to come down for a camp to help him fight with Sergey Dorochenko, I believe
Okay.
it's
Yeah. Mhm.
okay. And when I was helping him, they got to experience how good of a fighter I truly am, and that was a real eye opener for him. His camp. Uh, Myself as well, of course.
Mhm.
And but I always knew that I have levels and I have layers to my skills set, and I just always wanted an opportunity to prove that. And let's see. It was Jamal, and then fast forwarding towards where I fight Sergey Boychuk, undefeated guy in Puerto Rico. I fight him during COVID. Um, I'm only bringing it up because of the adversity of the fight. They're spraying hand sanitizer in the ring, making it slippery for the both of us, he and myself. It wasn't like, oh, I'm just the only one slipping. Both of us were slipping and losing balance. And it was also very humid out there. I made the best of what the situation, but I knew what I was trying to do. Excuse me.
Okay.
I'm getting a call. Um, just trying to take advantage of the opportunities that I could. It didn't present at the moment because of how slippery the ring was. I finally got the opportunity to hit him with what I was expecting to be able to hit him with throughout the whole fight.
Mhm.
And the night came to an end with me becoming the victor.
Yep.
Um, that fight meant a whole lot to me because I knew I was up against a promotion when I fought him. 360 promotion that was their next golden horse. And then we fight within this tournament, the overtime tournament, where I did extremely well, leading all the way up. And
Mhm.
the funniest thing ever is I kept talking to the overtime and the guys at overtime, and I kept saying like, "Hey man, I just feel like if I'm not mistaken, you guys are like the way that you guys are painting this portrait. You guys like." It almost appeared to me that you guys like cats a whole lot more. They was like, "Oh no, that's not what it is." And it just was something very small to me that I kind of noticed.
Mm.
So when we went into this final fight, I found out that skills don't always pay the bills. um, I go into a fight against a guy. The cat is tough. I won't take anything away from him,
Sure.
except um, he could learn how to fight without fighting so dirty.
Mhm.
Um, I noticed with not just with myself, but every fight that he fought within the tournament, they were all close fights and they all look the same, except mine's really. Uh, mine's you've seen a lot more skills, but unfortunately, I didn't get the nobody agree. Well, the
Mhm.
judges, nor the referee agreed with my skill set at the night, and that's where I'm at right now. And I had a lot of opportunities presented for had I won the tournament, and I was looking to be in that circle of the top fighters because that's where I belong.
Mhm.
You see how good of a fighter I am from the growth you saw all the way up to this point, and I've taken very good care of my body to where I'm one of the fighters who have started and had, um, relatively started slow or had a lot of inactivity, but still look very sharp, still look fast, still look very strong.
Yep.
Shows a lot of don't have the ring damage.
Mhm.
Every time I go out there and fight, with these big layoffs, you don't ever get to see ring rust because I take very good care of myself. I'm training extremely hard. I'm looking for opportunities to get back out here and fight. I knew I was gonna be avoided, even if I won this tournament. But now I know for a fact, you know, I am not everybody's first choice to fight because of my skill set.
Mhm. 100% agreement. Well, there's a few things I want to dive back into because obviously you explained a lot there, and a few things I want to go back into. So, one of which, man, is you talked about this, and really the whole gist people could take away from what you just talked about is that you have been someone that learns to adapt and learn from everything, every single thing, whether it be the highs or the lows. I think that's critical in life. I mean, no matter where you're at in life, if you don't learn from the things that you go through, it's going to be some problems for your life. But you obviously learn to adapt. And when we go back to the fact, just for people to know these numbers, you started training at 19, you start your amateur career at 20, you're pro boxing at 21. Not saying it's never been done before, but that's a very, very, very minority group right there. I mean, we talk about some guys, and the wilder stories, obviously, when people talk about, I think he started 22, 23 years old. Those are like such a small minority. So many people are boxing from the time they're young, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. When you talk about being able to go from just really first actually practicing boxing to amateurs to pros in a 2-year time span, how were you able to adapt that quickly?
I don't Honestly, man, I was always good at
Mm,
impersonations, excuse me.
okay.
So that's kind of what I would do. I would mimic. There's two fighters that I always watched. It was Mike Tyson because he was when I was a kid, he
Hmm.
was a hero. Period.
Yeah.
He's Iron Mike Tyson, Dynamite Kid.
Yep.
Everybody know who he is. But when I got involved in boxing, the fighter who stood out to me the absolute most was Floyd Mayweather. Reason being, well, him and Roy Jones.
Okay. Yeah.
Floyd and Roy Jones, but I knew I wasn't going to be tall. I wasn't going to be tall like Roy Jones, so
Hmm.
it wasn't a whole lot that I could pick up from a guy with the stature of Roy Jones. So I kind of I was always watching the both of them, but I
Sure.
started watching Floyd a lot more, and just how I had to view the game and study it from a defensive standpoint. I knew I was going to have to always be resilient and endure. So the job was to not get hit. My trainer always said every day, he's an old school trainer, Dub Huntley. Man, the name of the game is to hit and not get hit. So I start to watch how Floyd never got hit and how he kept moving and kept his hands up and started flipping. And
Mm-hmm.
so I tried my best to kind of not do exactly what he does because I also understood the difference between me and myself. I was more muscle bound and
Yeah.
I didn't have the experience he had of just throwing all of those punches, letting his hands go, and his IQ. So what I tried to do is just make um, a version of Floyd that fitted for me.
Mm.
Well, what I had, and that's what I approached it as, and I started having success once I never tried to be identical to anybody, learn from them, and kind of change what they do real good. If I can help make that for myself and bring my identity into it, that's how I was able to adapt and
Yeah.
learn so much and just keep going. That was the mindset. I'm telling you, I promise you, man, it was the mindset of all those martial art movies of starting off, starting
Yeah.
off. You know what I'm saying? Just you know, just a pup in the game. So
Mhm.
that mindset, my mindset was extremely strong, whether I recognize it or not.
You also talked about the Boxing Inc. tournament. That's obviously for people that are listening. That's the situation you're referring to with the whole weight cut and it's essentially the accusation of the PEDs or whatever that we want to call that there. And I want to go a little bit deeper into that because that's a serious thing. And that's something that's really got to be difficult because when you talk about the weight cutting thing, many doctors even come out and said that that weight cutting process for some guys is even more dangerous than the actual fight themselves for some guys. And you talk about what you went through. That's not easy. I believe the numbers, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, was you had to lose 12 pounds in about 2 days time span.
Well, that
That's
was that 12 pounds was that 12 pounds was actually within a day span, but
okay.
it was a lot more weight before. I had to go see once I went to go see Dr. Glutman, they did the whole drawing the blood and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I was real weary of working out that first day
Hmm.
because of all of the tests and everything that they ran on me. I had to make sure that I was coherent
Okay.
to do so because I knew at that moment, and it sucked because like once I got that scare, like man, if you don't take care of your business, then the promotion, excuse me, TV, ESPN, and them, they're gonna be on my neck. So you need to take care of what you need to take care of. So I was,
Mm.
for me, not knowing anything about how everything is ran, I was definitely afraid of. Making the mistake of not making weight or not even trying because when you start talking to a kid who doesn't know much about anything about suing them and a TV broadcast can sue you and promotions can sue you and then you'll be black like that frightened me into trying to make weight for my fight.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
And so you look at that situation got put in, obviously go in there, and that's the thing where obviously, yes, you have a loss in the loss column, but I think that one's probably one we could easily look back and say you have a legitimate, okay, you can move on from that one. But the thing is, like you said, that yes, you can look at yourself and say, I know that was not because I wasn't a good enough fighter or whatever it was, but you still have the ramifications that have come from that. And at that point, when I did some research, I said that you're unable to book another fight for some time. Savings even dried up for a little bit there, and things got pretty tough for you outside of the ring. Can you walk us through that? Because that's not easy. Like you said, you didn't start making them big money until Charlo fight. And so you're in a really difficult situation. And you could look at it and obviously you could blame the situation, and it's rightfully so. But how do you deal with that when you say, okay, at the end of the day, this is my situation I'm in now. I can't go back. It is what it is. How did you deal with that at that point in time?
I like I said, man, my mentality. I always thought that I was gonna get the call.
Mm-hmm.
I never not wanted to be ready or prepared for the opportunity had it presented itself. But yeah, it was at times it would be 3 years at a time that I would get just time ticking off. I fought Boychuk and I beat Boychuk, an undefeated fighter who was on his way. Right now, he's one of the
Yep.
top fighters in the world, and um, I beat him. Uh, I took his absolute best. I don't care what anybody say. That night when he fought me, that was a Boychuk who didn't know how to lose. That was a
Mm.
Boychuk who was hot, and then he had momentum.
Yeah.
And I beat him, and then it was a 2 year takeaway. I don't like saying layoff. Um, but because these years was taken away, these years was taken away, and
Mm,
all I could do is train. And while I was down, um, I had a support system, man, that takes care of me, man. My family, they
mm,
look out for me. My loved ones, my very close friends, uh, they didn't like. I didn't think about it too much. Honestly, I didn't think about how times is real hard for me, or how I was hurting, because I was always occupied and busy
mm,
with my family, with my kids, with my wife. Like I said, my brothers. There's like I was always busy, and then because people love my energy, I was at a gym, Elite Pro Boxing at the time, and the gym owner Steve Darty took very good care of me. He allowed me to come up in there and train respectfully, and I'll never forget him for that. Him, and it was just a lot of people who actually probably didn't know what they meant or what they were doing. They all helped me. It took a village. You know, they say
mm,
it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it took a village to keep this man from losing his mind.
mm.
And I started training people, and that was therapy. I continuously kept training myself. That was even more therapy. Um, so I just, I never had the time to look back and get down on myself and pity myself. I just
Gotcha.
was always looking for an opportunity, man, and opportunity, and eventually it came.
Hmm.
I saw, and here I am today.
And that opportunity, I know the big one obviously with Charlo, came off of your going through the season 5 of the Contender Series. You beat Shane Mosley Jr., and that's obviously a big win on your resume. And so I want to go into that situation for yourself because you go through, then that helps position you in a situation where I know you take the Charlo fight, but I believe the Triple G fight was also on the table for yourself around that time as well. So the point is, like, you're at a position where probably was one of the best situations you're at because of what you just came off of producing. Walk us through that decision at that point because you beat Shane Mosley Jr. Now you have the opportunity to choose between Charlo, Triple G. Why'd you go with Charlo?
Well, I was actually interested in fighting Triple G at the time too.
Mhm.
It was easy for me to go and fight Jermall. So Triple G, they offered me a fight, and I was shocked because I was already about to go back down on 154. I fought at 160 because there was an opportunity to get back,
Okay.
the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And that's usually why I always fought at 160. I always fought at 160 because there's an opportunity to get back going.
Mhm.
But right after me and Shane fought, I immediately got a call, and they were like, "Yo, Triple G wants to fight," and I was like, "Oh, okay." And then they told me, the amount. And honestly, I will not shy away from being honest.
Mhm.
The amount for fighting Triple G was for 150K.
Mhm.
And at the time when they offered me that amount, this is Triple G when he was pretty at the time. I was like, dang, they only offering me how much? And then I said, I told my promoter, my manager at the time, I said, man, but the craziest thing is you guys are offering me something close, remotely close, to fight a guy who people don't even know. People didn't even relatively know the other name that popped up. The
Mhm.
guy wasn't from the country. I forget his name, but that was offered instead of fighting Triple G. They were saying you could take these few fights and then you could fight Triple G, and then um, boxing they do this as well. So somebody must have got word that Triple G offered me a fight from Jermall's camp from PBC, because PBC turned around and said, "Hey, we'll offer you a fight." And
Okay.
so 150K, and then they said to fight Jermall, it was like 650K.
Wow.
so,
That answers
so
the question.
yeah, so once that was pronounced, I was like, I was like, let me look. So what I tried to do is I went back and I told Triple G's team, I was like, hey man, if you guys can bump the amount up, we could still make this fight happen. And just because I knew me and Triple G, we sparred together, and
Gotcha.
I was just like, man, and Triple G's got a name. I'm not saying
Mm.
Jermall didn't at the time. Jermall was still a top guy, but Triple G is Triple G.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I'm very much interested in fighting Triple G, and this was Triple G actually fought Steve Rose, if I'm not mistaken. That's his
Hmm.
name.
I think
All
believe
right,
yeah,
so
yeah.
he went that direction, and from what I hear, that was the same amount that they offered him, and he took it. But I was offered to fight Jermall. Wildest
Hmm.
thing is at that same time, that's when Canelo had relinquished his world title.
Hmm.
So once he relinquished his world title, the me and Jamal was fighting for that world title.
Yeah.
It's just when they worded it as Jamal because he's the powers that be worded it as him being the world champion.
Hmm.
But no, we were fighting for a vacant title, Jamal and
Gotcha.
myself. So that that was great. We were fighting for a vacant world title. I fought for a world title. I know with my skill set and admiration, I just know that I got the opportunity of doing so if I get in the ring and I stay active. Me, my manager, and my promotion right now, we're trying to get something going. But my manager's working extremely hard, Market BB. He's trying his damnedest to get me going, and I
Hmm.
appreciate that. So I'm trying to match that and stay in the gym and keep training.
Okay. You said something interesting when you're going through the story part about after the Charlo fight. You guys went and you ended up helping him in one of his camps, and you said that you even impressed yourself a little bit with how good you were capable of being at that point. So you got to go a little bit deeper into that component because that is something that's obviously you're talking about. Prime Charlo, guy's a world champion. We obviously people know who he is. When you look at yourself and you say, you know what, I can go toe to toe this guy. I already went 12 rounds with a guy, and I had a messed up hand, left hand right there. How much confidence does that give you now, just seeing yourself and what you're capable of doing? How much does that kind of motivate you going forward now, knowing that, hey, I can go with a guy that go toe to toe with a guy that's one of the best in the world?
It brought a calmness towards my game.
Mm,
Uh, a lot of times when I was fighting, I wasn't as calm. I used to always try to tell myself, "Be calm, be calm. You got to be more relaxed so you can throw punches." Because I'm muscular,
mm,
muscularly built. So I was always trying to find a way of zenning myself out. And my what I was producing allowed me to see that I can be calm. And once I've learned that, like I said, when I went up there and I fought Jermall, when he's throwing, and the funniest thing is Jamal's very competitive too. He's so competitive. When he saw when I jabbed him one time, he seen me kind of whisk in my hand, like, "Ah." And because I threw the jab, meaning to hit him, but I really didn't want to hit him because I knew what my hand felt like. It was painful.
mhm,
He kind of seen me like, ah. He tried to jump on me, and he was swinging for the fences, and I just kept
yeah,
ducking, slipping, and sliding away from his punches. At the end of the fight, he said, "Yeah, man. In the end of the first round, the beginning of the second round, I hurt my hand, uh, so I couldn't give you guys the knockout that y'all wanted." And I looked at him, and he kind of looked at me like this, and he turned away, and I looked at him, and I was like, "Hey, man, he not telling the truth. He knew my hand was hurt." And so I used to always mess with him about it. When we was down at the camp, I was like, "Yeah, I hurt my hand." He said, "Man, I hurt my hand too." I looked at him. I said, "Yeah, between the last bit of the first round and then the second, you can't even figure out where your hand was hurting." So we always like we competitively talked about it. Uh, but during that time that I was there for his camp, like once I saw that I was calmly working with him and stuff, man, and they just couldn't figure me out completely,
mhm,
and how the fighter that they saw the night of the fight was a total complete different version for me. That kind of opened the floodgates for me to know, like, look, man, Brandon, I know you didn't start like everybody else started. I
mm,
know your role wasn't as easy as theirs, but whatever the case is you've had it hard, so you can know how to appreciate this when you make it. When you get there, not only will you appreciate it, but your loved ones, everybody who knows your story, everybody who knows something about you, they will appreciate this.
mm,
And you got a great opportunity to do so. And that's what I believe. I believe I wasn't supposed to have it easy. I was supposed to have it hard. My whole life has been real difficult. It's been very hard, but resilient. I've been extremely resilient. I don't know how to give up. I
mhm,
don't know how to give up. That's why I'm still here.
yep,
Um, and I keep getting better. So that's also for a reason.
mhm,
Everything does happen for a reason. So that's truly what I believe in. Uh, Nothing other than that. Honestly, I'm right now in today's time, man. I'm showing my existence and how resilient that I am throughout of my whole life. Like I don't like to talk about all the negativity within the community that I come from or came from, because look at what's so good that came from out of it. So I don't like to just highlight all the negativity. I want to
Yeah.
highlight some of the positivity by showing it right in the present time. Right now, you have a fine young gentleman who can speak, who can
Mm-hmm.
speak very clear, who can articulate his words, who can speak the language of boxing and articulate that towards someone, which I do. I own a boxing gym. It's called Cannon Nation, and
Yep.
I'm showing youth. I'm giving them what I didn't have when I was their age. Mentorships is extremely important. I got that going. I feel real good about myself and what I'm able to do right now. And I don't believe that I have capped. I don't believe that I'm nothing close to capping. I feel like the ceiling, whichever ceiling that I ever did have, it doesn't exist, or I'm too blind to see it when I look up. So I appreciate where I'm at in life.
If you were to go back, and obviously I don't like the hypotheticals or whatnot, but let's say you were 100% healthy in the Charlo fight, how much different does that fight end up becoming?
You would have heard that night, and the new.
Mm.
Yeah, most definitely.
All right.
He knows it too. After he seen me work, after we and him worked, for them few sessions that we worked, he
Yeah.
told me out of his own mouth. He said, "Brandon, man, if you in my hometown, they would have yelled and the new." That takes a lot for a man like him to say that to me.
Mm.
He was like, "Brandon, man, you good, bruh. I don't know. I know I'm good, bruh, but you good, and people don't even know how good you are." I
Mm.
said, "Man, it's up to people like you to put that out." Like, I know ain't nobody gonna do no favors for nobody, and nobody want to seem weak in front of the people that look up to them or admire them. But it would have went a long way if Jermall and a lot of other fighters and a lot of other, fighters, if we kind of had each other back a lot more, and we kind of helped big each other up a lot more instead of trying to tear each other down or try to just put ourselves on a podium of this this God tier.
Yeah.
I think that definitely could do a whole lot for the future of boxing and how because boxing is different from basketball, it's different from all these other sports. Like when you see a guy who's in high school who's killing it, you kind of hear about the kid. When you
Mhm.
hear about a kid that's in college, you get to see it, you get to see it, you get to hear it. But in boxing, you don't get that. They don't publicize it because it's entirely too many boxers trying to be boxers. But the
Yeah.
top fighters or people around in that community or in that gym, if you're at a status where you are liked, what's wrong with pointing out the future? Yo, this kid is good. Be on the lookout for them. We don't do
Mm.
that. So I got the podium. I'm working on something. I'm working on building my young fighters up from the gym to build them up so they can have a voice of their own
Love it,
in the
man.
future.
Just wondering hypothetically, I know Charles is working his way back. He's probably gonna be fighting, I guess, in May, a couple weeks now. But is that something that we could see before you guys end your guys' careers that you guys could possibly run it back again?
You know what? I always crack this joke and always tell everybody, man, I am never prepared to turn no fight down. If him and
Uh,
his team presented that fight towards me, I don't, I love him. You know what I'm saying?
mhm.
Hopefully he got love for me too. But whatever the case is, I would love to get in the ring with him again.
All right.
Um, I know I wouldn't have to worry about him fighting. He's a stand up guy. He didn't when he and I fought. He didn't. He tried to show boxing skills. That's why I appreciate Jamal because he did everything in the rule books to try to prove that he was the better man.
Mhm.
And not every fighter will do that. As I'm not trying to haze my last fight, but what I'm saying, like cats over 30 low blows,
Yep.
over 30 low blows. That's
Mhm.
crazy. Like when fighters is doing that and we've prepared and trained our whole lives, or to a certain extent, these become deadly weapons. And now you're swinging and you're all into my future kids, man. What are you doing, man? Yeah, so like man, if it's somebody I really look forward to running it back, you know what I'm saying? it would definitely be out of every guy that I didn't get the nod on. He's the only guy that like I really was looking forward to fighting Willie Monroe. He taught me a valuable lesson. Me
Mm,
fighting John Thompson, it was a valuable lesson within just me being prepared and training at all
yeah.
times. Then when I fought Jermall Charlo, the injuries and then the birth of my son, um, little Braden Adams, who's now 5, turning
Hmm.
6, June 9th.
Okay.
um, those are all learning lessons. And you can say this one right here with cats was a learning lesson as well. Like, don't leave it in the judge's hands and everything. But it
Sure.
kind of was out of my hands when the referee's allowing fouls to take place. Because
Yep.
now that's the scary thing. Because it's like, no, you can't leave it in the judge's hands. Like, yeah, but what if the referee is not playing his role? What if he's not doing what he's supposed to do? And I
Right.
took it personal because there was a lot of low blows going on. Like, out of all the other, it was business, yeah, and I had to learn business. But when it came to me fighting cats, um, that was just it was foul, and for me to be, and I'm not gonna lie, for me to be the American, and for me to be the American, and then it's a guy from a different country who's gonna come over here and get the nod for a performance like that, I was like, no, come on, bro.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a proud American, and y'all gonna this can't be this is of our backyard, you guys. And I had the it was the WBO title. It was a
Hmm.
short continental title, if I'm not mistaken.
Something like that. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys allowed that performance to be enough to call as a victor when if it was the UFC, I could see why he won, but then it would have been a different fight in itself. There'd be kicking,
Yep.
they'll be elbowing, but no, this is boxing. You can't use your head to lean on someone. I don't have to go too much into details to explain towards a referee his job. He knows his job. Leading with the head, doing that's illegal.
Yep.
Rabbit punching is illegal. Low blows is very much illegal. So if you was to strip that from him, then he's not. He's not. He wouldn't have won. I guess he wouldn't have looked so dominant if he wasn't low blowing me so much.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'll definitely be looking forward to getting it back in the ring to run it back with that dude. Just, you know what I'm saying? Because my kids feel like we owe him. and But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting in the ring with all the top guys because, like I said before, that's where I belong. Him, um, like I was just saying earlier, a lot of his fights have been extremely close. He's just been getting by.
Yeah.
When I win in fashion. I win and I dominate. I win and I dominate. I'm looking forward to dominating, getting back in the ring with the top guys and dominate.
Well, you kind of brought me right to where I want to wrap up kind of talking about with you, and that is that overall the fight with Cats, because obviously it was controversial to say the least there, and you kind of just went in depth on that portion. But what I really want to ask you is that following that, you end up finding the appeal because of the low blows, all that. Can you give us an update what all went down in that situation? And then now going forward now, is this a fight that we could possibly see in rematch? I believe he's fighting pretty shortly now, but later on this year, could we see a rematch between you two?
Look, as far as the rematch goes, I would
Hmm.
love to get back in the ring with him. I just made that very clear.
Yeah.
Actually, it's the funniest thing is me and Cass was talking to each other or via DMs on Instagram.
Okay.
He don't. From what I get, this is what he said. He said, "Brandon, I'm not running from you. We was in the ring for 10 rounds already." Uh, And then he spoke as if the fight was easy. And then he told me, like, he started speaking to me as if I was delusional. He said, "Man, all of those low blows didn't happen. You're
Hmm.
delusional. The fight was one sided, very much one sided. Me and my team had a great game plan. We executed that game plan and we beat you." I said, "Hey, look, man, you got a gift. You got a gift. Skills. If you watched the fight on TV, you saw all the activity that I was giving you. It was much more than you and your team could handle. But just being honest, you were gifted a lot of things from the low blowing and then I didn't want to get really too much into the conversation, but I have the DMs and I got the DMs. I was like, yo, man, every time your manager fighters get into these close fights, how you guys all get the nod? How did you guys all get the nod? They're gonna go out as fighters, get the nod, get the win, and look at your performances. All of your performances when you fought Q, when you fought your first fight on the in the tournament, you didn't win that fight, but since you fought in Texas, they gave that fight to you. That guy outworked you. When you fought against Terry, that fight was extremely close. And then when you fight against an even better, skilled, more polished fighter, now this fight is all close. So you're gonna keep fighting all these controversial, close fights, and you're supposed to be a top guy in the world. Like,
Yep.
but all your fights, you're getting outworked. I didn't outwork you as far as people want to say because you was hitting me all in the private area in the penis,
Mm. Yeah.
and that would stagnate or paralyze any man who's getting hit in the penis. If you want me to, so. Yeah, I very much be looking forward to fighting him. And right now, me and my team is trying our best to put together a fight for June.
Okay.
Whether it be for us to go out and try to put on a show ourselves, just make sure we get the nod from my promotion. But yeah, we're trying to stay active because there's a lot of great opportunities going
Mhm.
right now, and I want to seize them. So if nothing is produced um, I want to say by no later than June, I was told that something could be in the works for me around September against a very big name. So I want to
Okay.
go ahead and instead of having such a huge layoff, I want to do myself some justice and start getting active now. So me and my team are looking at fighting around June. I doubt Katz wants to fight me. I don't know if I made that clear
Yeah.
because during the DMs, he like, hey man, I wish you well. And I was like, no. Let's run it back, bro. Why are
Yeah.
you acting like that? Like I have the conversation, bro. I'll screenshot and send it to you, and you tell me if it looked like he wants to fight with me.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, I think he don't want that. I think they know that they pissed me off too about how it went, and he wouldn't want to fight a angry version of me because he felt the minute that he felt my power is the moment he starts smothering and trying to grab to
Mm.
survive. So, it'd be a whole lot of that from the very beginning. And now that I know that, since he's dick hunting, I'll keep him far away from the kids. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Well, I got a couple of questions before I let you go, man. One of which is you kind of just outlined the plan. You want to get back in the ring by June, and hopefully this could even be a bigger fight come early fall time. But when you look at yourself, obviously you have X amount of years left in this sport. How much longer you have left in this boxing? What is it you have set for yourself in terms of goals? How many fights you want? What do you want to accomplish? Like, if you were to say the dream outline for yourself, what does that look like for you?
Um, Honestly, just because of how good I feel, I want to fight up until I'm 40. That's a goal. That's a goal for myself.
Okay.
And I mean, anything can always change. Boxing is boxing, but right now, I wish to fight up till I'm 40, and then after that, I'm just be a coach, just start helping the future and fighters that are coming up like myself.
Love it.
That's I have my own gym, like I said. I do well, but right now because I'm still training and I'm training people, I'm still having to juggle a lot.
Yeah.
And the moment that I able to just train people, that's going to be totally different. I'm going to always be working out because that's just who I naturally am. I've done it for too long.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the version of myself when I'm not. You know what I'm saying? Like I
Yeah.
can't be over here talking to people, telling people what to do, and I got the gut. Shout out to everybody with the gut, but for me, I can't do it. And I just always want to be my best version of myself. So that's what I always work towards. And that's what I expect for everybody. I'm not expecting for everybody to be a world champion. I'm not expecting for everybody to be a millionaire, but I'm expecting for everybody to want the best for themselves and try to achieve the best for themselves. So, I'm going to lead by example. I'm going to try to walk that walk and talk that talk. And hopefully, I'm saying it becomes contagious and, like a cape, it goes.
Absolutely, man. Well, I gotta ask you about one other thing, man. That's your ring walk outfits. That is something that you become signature for. I love them. They're obviously very, very. They're great, to be honest. I don't know other way to put it than other than it being great. So I gotta ask you a story behind them. Obviously, you have countless ones. So you don't need to go into every single one of them. But when you talk about the ideas that you have to come up with some of these outfits, Break them down for us. How did this whole start to come out with costumes and different outfits for yourself?
All right, so it's pretty simple, honestly, man. Like I've played a lot of video games growing up, and I was heavy into, of course, the Ninja Turtles. That was heavy in the '90s,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw what the tournament was doing, so I made myself become the villain, and that's why I chose to be Shredder. Everybody knew who the Shredder was,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I went into the tournament because I saw how they were mapping everything out, and I just wanted to take advantage of being the anti-hero and come in
Sure.
as the Shredder. And the Shredder is known for being extremely skilled, you know. So that
Mm-hmm.
was just the Shredder. For every fight, I kind of always go just like right off the mind. I visualize who I want to be and how they were or whomever. For very instance, when I fought Boychuk, it was Scorpion. The reason why I chose Scorpion, who was just always my favorite, because every time the Scorpion came back, he would leave. If you watch every Mortal Kombat, he got destroyed or he went back to the Nether Realm or whatever the case was, he
Mm-hmm.
always came back stronger, with more armor, with more, refined skills. And when I came back as the Scorpion, that was it. I wanted to make sure that that's what it was. And then Scorpion wasn't necessarily a hero nor a villain.
Sure.
And again, the boy chick thing, I knew what it was. And before, because I was supposed to fight Boy Chuck before I fought Sonny Duverson, I came out as Cooper,
Mm-hmm.
Bowser. And the reason why I came out as Bowser is because he was misunderstood
Mm.
for always going after the princess. I mean, yeah, he's a conqueror, Bowser is, but he was always misunderstood. If you saw what Princess Peach was doing, you'd understand why he was always going after her. The backstory behind it, she was playing her part too. She was being nice, and so Bowser's not really actually a bad guy. He just wanted what he wanted, and he was going after what he wanted. So every time when I chose a character, it was based off of what I knew of and what I grew up with from the '80s to the '90s. And I
Okay.
know a lot of people can relate. I know, a lot of us can all relate to those times. It's like the retro era, and I like to take advantage of that.
Gotcha.
And that's usually what I do. Every time when I go into these characters, I make sure that when I go into these characters, I can live through these characters, and these characters can live through me, and you'll see that during the fight. Like for instance, when I was a shredder, you saw I was that work. I was
Mm-hmm.
cutting my man's up. I was like, yo, come on, man.
Absolutely, man. Well, you talked about the Cannon Nation Boxing Gym. I just want to elaborate on that real quick for everybody here because I love that going through your IG, seeing the way you promote a lot of young guys, the way you're giving back too while still being a boxer. Can you take us to that inspiration? Why did you start to go all in on this now and also have ultimately your secondary thing? Well, obviously, like you said, when you're done boxing, you want to become a coach and trainer in that aspect. What motivated you to want to go in that direction?
Being mistreated in the sport.
Mm,
Honestly, being mistreated in the sport, I learned it was extremely difficult, and you need to make sure like people need help, and what better way of getting help than somebody who's been through all the rough ends of the sport. Like I wasn't part of no big promotion. Um, I'm the reason why you hear anything about me at this particular moment, at this point, is literally just because of my skill set. Is because I'm capable of producing, and every time I came out and I fought, I've always produced. So that's always been something very huge. And if I can give to somebody else what I have without all the headache and the heartache and make their route just a little easier off of my name, then that's what I'm going to try to do.
mm,
Because that's what other trainers did for their fighters. Um, that's what it is. Freddie Roach, when Freddie Roach go train and fight, work with a fighter that you never heard of, eventually you hear about him. You know why? 'Cause he's behind Freddie Roach, and I love using Freddie Roach's name because um, I'm one of the guys who had the opportunity of working with a
yeah.
guy such as himself. And there's a lot of coaches and a lot of trainers who believe in that same thing, who fell in love with being able to help create in other people's lives and worlds, and it feels real good. It feels real good helping somebody else out. Um, if people don't have never tried doing it, they should try it. You'll feel real warm inside if you do it.
Yep.
Um, each one teach one, and that's how these leaves grows to be trees. And you know, I just really believe in that, man, and that's why I work it.
Love that, man. Well, I got one final question for you, Brandon, before I let you go. It's a question I like wrapping up with every single guest, and that's talking about your legacy. We kind of just talked about that a little bit, but we know someday you're going to put down the gloves, step away from boxing. When that day comes, what is it that you want people to remember Brandon Adams for?
His resilience. I want everybody to remember that Brandon Adams didn't have it easy. Brandon Adams didn't have nobody holding the door for him when he was coming through. He had to break them doors down.
Mm,
That's pretty much it, man. It was a random guy, walked up to me and said, "What is my why?" He was like, "What is your why?" And I was like, "You know, I box because my family." He was like, "You don't get hit in the face because of your family." And I was like, "Yeah, well." After I finished get hit in the face, they get to walk away with the check. So then he was like, "Yeah, but that's not why you box."
mm,
And then he said, "So why did you go so hard? Like, why out of everything in your whole entire life you chose this to go so hard in?" And I couldn't give him an answer. I got in the car and I started driving, and I was driving home, and I was like, "Damn, why couldn't I think of anything?" And as I was driving, I sat in silence, man. And as I was sitting in silence, like, I remember, man, I was stuck in traffic. I was on the 91 freeway, just stuck in traffic, and I was like, because I was really trying to think of what was going on. And I am not lying, man. I cut on Sweet Dreams by Rhythmics. Sweet Dreams. I
mm,
cut it up loud, and I cut my air conditioner on real loud. And so like the air blowing all out in the car, and I'm driving, and the music is playing, and literally I was like, I know why I do this. I do this to prove that I exist. I do.
mm,
Everybody who do know me when I was growing up, it was a lot of people who said that I wasn't going to become anything because of all of my family. My family didn't choose to go the right path, or they started extremely late. So I had that pedigree. There's a lot of people in my community who just didn't grow and to be anything. So their growth was stunted, and that sucks. Lives was taken um, very shortly. There's a lot of guys who didn't grow to be adult men,
mm,
and a lot of them had their lives taken away making and dumb decisions. Just didn't do intelligent things with themselves, with their times, and I am from that community. And to prove that I existed, I had to keep working and get out of it, and then show everybody that was in that community, look, you could do the exact same thing. I am you,
mm,
and not just them from that community, but I am you. I am the hard worker. I'm the blue collar worker who just doesn't quit, who doesn't put up, who knows and understands the hardships that they have to deal with, but still have to overcome every day. You got to go get gas, baby. Gas is going up. What you got to do? You got to still fill up. That's how you go to work. I am willing to put in that work. I'm the living American dream regardless, and I'm always going to be working for that piece of the pie. That's why I do it, to prove that my existence. Everything we do is to prove existence. Right now, I exist, and I'm trying to make the absolute best of my existence by not only producing for self, but producing for others. Because
mm.
then we grow, and that's what happens. We're able to keep passing on that knowledge. That's what I'm here for.
Well, Brandon, I love that answer, man. I appreciate you so much for coming on today, man. It was a blessing getting to have you on. I'm so excited to see what God's got in store for you next, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Of course, you're always welcome on, man. God bless.
Thank you.